Good evening. Happy Thursday once again, and Happy New Year. It's that time again. Welcome back to the Man Cave, brother Jeff.
How we
How's
doing?
how's life in Orlando?
Cool for a change.
And Tanya. Tanya's got her mic off again. How's life upstairs?
It's good.
All right. Well, happy 2025 to everybody.
Yes, indeed.
This it's that. I guess the first thing I'm looking forward to tonight is it's bourbon night in the Man Cave, but tonight it's actually Tanya. It's Tennessee whiskey.
Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah, I'm going to have a pour of this Jack Daniel's bonded that I like. It's one of the newer offerings from Jack Daniel's. It's a bottled and bond black label. It's pretty good. Jeff, you haven't tried that one yet, have you?
No.
You tried that? Are you having a
No.
drink with us tonight?
Oh yeah.
Let me see. You're having Heaven Hill tonight, right?
No. I
Nope.
gotta go buy
Eagle
another
Rare.
bottle of Heaven Hill. Yeah.
Eagle Rare. Oh,
Yeah, I still got
boy.
2 bottles of Eagle Rare to go through.
Tanya, you got the coffee pot running?
I do have the coffee pot running.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
And I've got the
Motor.
one that has the slide lid on it, so Meryl
Yeah.
can't lick my coffee.
Or do the
Motors
dunk
here
the
with
pie
us.
in.
R Hill and Randall. Good
Yeah.
deal.
Hey, here's Anthony.
Anthony, yeah. Jeff, I'm getting some feedback from you there somehow or another. Okay. Not sure what's going on there, but it was squealing.
Yeah, I don't know if it was me or if it's when Tanya came on.
All right. Anyway, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Mm. I think Tanya and I are going to visit the Jack Daniel's distillery again sometime. When we were there, the pandemic had the inside tour of the distillery closed. I'd like to go back. And one of the reasons I want to go back is I want to buy one of the barrels. I want to buy one of the, not with whiskey in, and I'm going to buy one of the empty barrels. I think it'd make a nice item to put out on my deck. So,
Yeah, for a second there, I was like,
yeah,
what?
no, we're not
What?
buying a barrel of whiskey. So,
He's
What?
having a cake party.
yeah,
Oh my
it's not,
God. I don't think we know
that's-
enough people.
no, we're not buying a barrel of whiskey. Not here. That's a lot of bottles. I don't remember how many bottles that is, but it's a lot. So, Andrew, glad you could make it. Russ, glad you could make it in with us. Dave and Brian, some of the regular crew here tonight.
Well, John, let's put it this way: it's more than a weekend bender.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you got hanging with you. So,
Oh, you'd have to have
still
a
a lot of
lot of
whiskey.
people hanging.
Yeah.
John,
And
I don't think you and Hemi can drink that much in a weekend.
I don't know, man. Me and the boy cat, we can get it going crazy around here. Once
Yeah,
again, I
then you start
appreciate it.
then you start talking to Google.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did he tell you about that?
He
We'll talk about
posted
that.
it.
Okay.
Oh.
I appreciate those of you that have made contributions to the live stream. That's been very helpful. I've gotten enough actually to cover the cost of the software for the first few months that we've come back here. That's been extremely helpful. So once again, if you can spare a buck or two, I've got my information up there for you. And once again, I put that towards the cost of the StreamYard application here that we use to do this live stream with. And if there's any left over, I put it towards things like those RFX probes or something else that I'm going to review and I'll bring to the table here periodically. So I appreciate your help with that, and I'll put that back up later in the stream. We'll look at it again, but it's very helpful, and I thank all of you who have contributed. There's been quite a few people here that have that have helped me out there with that. So
John, let's start the night off with a little levity. Let's talk about your faux pas today.
oh boy.
Oh my
So
lord,
it's a good one.
Hang on a sec. You talking about
dude!
when I was talking to
Yeah.
Google?
Oh, I've got it up. Do you want me to read it to you?
No, hang on a minute. Let me see if I can.
So here's the deal,
Yeah,
y'all. I was
I did a
actually
screen capture.
like maybe 5 feet from John when this happened, and I mean he is losing it, and I'm like, oh my
Well,
god,
here's
why?
what happens. Sometimes your phone, your phone's listening to you all the time, and what happens? I got it here. Uh, my phone thought I was talking to the phone. My phone thought I was speaking to Google and asking for something, but I was talking to my cat. My cat's on the table, and yeah, and me and Hemi were talking about coming downstairs because down here in the man cave, this is where me and Hemi hang out. So, Dustin, no, this stream's only on YouTube and Facebook. I don't do an audio only version of this anymore, so that's not out there. But anyway, my phone heard me talking, and let me put this up. I don't know if you can actually see this, but my phone heard me say, "Big boy, yeah, you ready to go downstairs for a while?" And my phone comes back and responds to me, "Sorry, I'm not comfortable role playing." So now I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that Google thinks I'm some sort of weirdo now after that. But and when I heard my phone talking, I pulled it out of my pocket to see what's going on. I said, "Oh, Tanya, you're never going to guess what my phone just did."
John, I
Yeah,
have done that so many times on the Facebook Messenger. Kathy and I'll
yeah,
be talking, and we get this big long thing, and I look at it and I go, "What the heck?"
yeah. But
Drives
that
you
one came out.
nuts.
It was funny. It the context of what I said to my cat could be
Yeah.
taken a lot of different ways.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking to my cat. I was asking if he wants to. When I said, you want to go downstairs?" I was talking about coming to the man cave.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure Google picked up on that the same way that my
Google
cat
has a
picked
dirty
up on it.
mind, apparently.
Yeah. So,
Really.
Let's talk about bias in AI for a minute.
oh.
Ah,
Oh my goodness.
Tanya, that'll be a good case study for your class.
Oh, it will, and I will 100% totally be using
Yeah.
and my husband.
Yeah. The AI is not as smart as you think it is sometimes, right? I guess that's what Google gets for listening in on something that it had no business listening in on. So yeah, while I've got that screen up, uh, I'll show you guys one of the things I got for Christmas from my mother. I was wanting this is a new I got a new kitchen scale, and Jeff has this scale. Jeff asked me up. I don't remember how long ago it was now. What I'd
About nine
recommend for
months
a
ago, I
kit,
think.
yeah, for what I'd recommend for a kitchen scale, and I pointed him at this one because, and when I went to find the link for it, I saw right away that they've upgraded the one I've got to this newer model, and I wanted it because it's got a lot nicer display on it. And this is the new one sitting beside my old one. You can see how much easier the display is to read. It's got a backlit LCD that stays lit all the time. This one over here is not lit, and when you hit the light button on that one, it's got this blue backlight that's really not that contrasty and not that easy to see. But this is my go-to kitchen scale, and this is the scale that I use to weigh all of my ingredients with, unless it's a micro dose ingredient, which I've got a different scale for. But this feature right here, where that faceplate comes out, was one of the reasons I bought this scale to begin with, because you can set a really large mixing bowl on there and pull that out and still see your display. I've got some 8-quart mixing bowls around here that I use sometimes when I'm working with bread that make that right. These scales are not calibratable, but I've got this 100-gram calibration weight that I use to calibrate one of my little micro scales, and it reads perfect on here. So the thing's accurate enough. But I just thought I'd show you that anyway. I made a post. Did I make the post? No, I haven't made the post. I'm gonna make the post probably tomorrow. I'll have this on the Man Cave Mills Facebook page. I wanted to briefly talk about that because that's part of what's going to end up on the really right stuff list. That's my really right scale. And like I said, Jeff using it. Have you got any complaints or dislikes about that scale, Jeff?
No, I love that scale. The thing that I hated about my other scale, I'd be in the middle of measuring, and if you stop for a second, I think
Yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 seconds, the thing would zero out and go,
Uh,
go off on you,
right.
and then you have to start all over again. And when it
This
was
one
time for the batteries to be replaced, that's when I asked you, said, okay, we got to get something better than this.
This one's got a pretty good time on it. It doesn't.
does.
It will shut off on its own, but it's got a longer timeout, and it uses four.
On me during any measuring.
Right. It uses 4 AAA batteries, and that the product table on there is a stainless steel piece, and it's plastic underneath, but that piece will pop off of there where makes it easier to clean it. You can pop that thing off, and then it'll just snap back down in place. Makes it easy to clean, but it's a really cool little scale. All right, Tanya, we'll bring you back. Okay. Jeff, this is something we like to do at the first of the year is have our little cooking resolutions. And I'm going to go ahead and throw my hand up and admit that I've made a resolution for 2 years in a row for cooking that I have not followed through with. So it's going to become my first and primary objective this year so I can make sure I do it. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But the other day I posted on the Man Cave Meals page, I asked some of my audience what some of their resolutions were. And I wanted to go through a couple of those to start with because there were a couple of common threads. I had multiple people tell me they were going to cook a brisket. And some of these people, they've been around in my circle long enough, I figured they would have done that by now. But apparently, the brisket is found to be a really daunting task, and I can understand that. Brisket is I don't know. Brisket itself is I don't know what the term I'm looking for here is. Brisket is still probably, in terms of beef, with maybe the exception of the eye of round, it's the cheapest beef you can buy per pound. But the problem with them is they're so large, they're expensive because these briskets, you'll find them anywhere from 12 to 25 pounds. I found a 24 pounder the other day that I posted a picture of that I thought was probably one of the biggest briskets I've ever seen. So it can be expensive at $4 to, it's anywhere from $4 to $4.25 a pound on average for a choice and prime grade brisket. But it seems like I've got quite a few people that have maybe not taken that leap yet to cook a brisket. And I'm wondering, Jeff, if maybe we need to get together and do a beginner's brisket episode here and tackle brisket. Do a brisket your way. Do one of the hot and fast briskets, and I'll do a low and slow, or we could do it vice versa. I know you were working with a newer method that you said you really liked. I think it's a low and slow you're doing that low temp hold, low. What do they call it? A low hold.
Right, a low hold. I've been cooking at 250 until it gets to 193. I pull it, I wrap it. I don't wrap it before that. I wrap it at 193, put it in the ice chest or underneath the blankets for a minimum of 5 hours, and that thing has come out picture perfect.
You pull it at what temperature?
193.
You cook it now back. I'm missing something here. Back up. You cook at what temp?
250.
And when it hits 193, you pull it.
I'm pulling it at 193 and I'm wrapping it, and it raises right up to. I had the thermometer in it, and she raises right up to 204 on the rest.
And it's tender enough.
That thing is like butter.
Hmm.
It's this guy over here at Smoke Made Meats, this barbecue place that is absolutely fantastic here in town. I was talking to him on how he was doing his briskets, and he says, "This is the way I do them: 250 till
Right.
it's 193. Wrap it. He's got those industrial, warmers. He says we
Now,
throw them
but
in
he's
there
going
for
in.
a
He's
minimum.
going in a warmer. That's a different situation. You're not
Well, it's
going in a
still the heat.
warmer.
It's still maintain. Well, what I'm doing with mine, John, is I, I'm wrapping it in a blanket.
Hmm.
I wrap it first in the foil, or wrap it first in my butcher paper, wrap it in foil,
Yep.
put it in an aluminum pan, wrap the whole aluminum pan uh, in my moving blanket or a
Yep.
big heavy towel, and then I leave it in the mixing at 170, and it comes up to 204, and it's fantastic.
So yeah, you're holding it in a warming oven. It's not going
Yeah,
in a cooler.
no,
Okay.
not going in a
So
cooler.
yeah, that makes sense. That's the part I missed out on was that. So uh,
And I would go
I
lower than that if my mixing would go lower than that, but it's 170 is as
yeah,
low as that thing will go. Now the master belt, if you do it in the master belt, that's 150. I can get that down to 150, but I'm a little afraid of it throwing sparks.
sparks.
Yeah, catching my blanket on fire.
Well, if you're holding it at 150, you wouldn't need the blanket though, right?
I could probably get away without it, but the reason why I use the blanket is because it's 170 on the mixing, so I kind of give it a little bit of insulation to keep it from getting that 170.
Yeah. Randall says he's been doing brisket, or he's been grilling and smoking for 30 years, and he's still terrible with brisket. I'm. I think sometimes I think people might think they're terrible at brisket, and they're not really terrible at brisket. The brisket is confusing because the brisket is two different muscles
Yep.
in that one hunk of meat. The flat is a lot leaner than the point. So because of that, two different results are common at the end of the cook. The flat and the point, when they're done, they're not going to have the same level of tenderness.
No.
The point is going to be tougher, or the flat is going to be
Flat's gonna be
tougher
tougher.
than the point simply because it's a leaner cut. It's not going to have that same level of probe tenderness that the point has. So this is why when I am cooking a brisket, I'm always more focused on the probe tenderness in the point more so than in the flat.
Yep.
Uh, I've cooked briskets a lot of different ways, and I know Jeff has as well, but I have not experimented as much with some of the hot and fast methods that Jeff's been using lately, and this new one he's using with that long hold. I've
The
that
mixing hot and fast is good. He does it in like a 5 hour
right,
cook.
Jeff. What we need for that long hold, and that could also be done on pork butts as well. We need one of these master built electric smokers because I think it will settle in at 150, and
Yeah,
they're
well,
not that they're not that expensive, and it would make a good holding oven
yeah,
for
I
something
didn't even
like
think
that.
about that, but you're absolutely well. The only thing is will it hold a full brisket?
I'm sure it will because people cook briskets in them.
I don't think it's well. I have to take a look. I don't know if it's really big enough.
I think it
When people are
is.
cooking briskets in there, I think they're cutting them.
I think it'll hold a hotel pan.
You think
I
so?
could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I
Well,
might
they
look
got
that
different
up.
models. Yeah,
Right. But I think that would be the perfect holding oven for that process.
I'll look that up while we're talking.
But maybe we need to talk about having another brisket night and focus on a couple of methods that are more surefire, where One of the focus on a couple methods that are easy. The other thing I see get people screwed up on briskets, the same thing that screws people up on a lot of things when they're first learning, is what I call the information overload. When you go start reading in the online forums about cooking a brisket, everybody's got their tips and tricks, and everybody's got a lot of different tips and tricks. People inject, people wrap, people don't wrap, people use foil, people use butcher paper, people inject tallow, they inject seasoned tallow. There's just a whole plethora of things that people do. And one of the things I see the newer brisket cooks trying to do is trying to do all of that. And I've tried all of those things at one time or another, and some of them I think are a waste of time, while other ones may or may not be. But brisket's becoming like turkey for me. It's one of these cooks that's a lot of work, and it still just ain't that good in the end. And I know I'm gonna take a lot of heat for saying that, but I think we need to do a couple of more brisket cooks that we can bring to the live stream and try to make the process easier, and try to convince everybody that if you're not a master of brisket, start with this technique and build upon that. Work it up and go. And Anthony says the question is to cook the flat and the point together, or how to cook a flat only. You can take them apart. You can cook one or the other. I don't ever recommend buying just the flat, because if you buy, everybody that sells the flat, they're charging about twice as much per pound for just the flat as they charge for a whole brisket. The flat's going to cost you $7 a pound or better, where the whole thing's going to cost you $4 a pound. But in the real world, the best way to cook that is to take them apart and cook them as two separate pieces of meat. I'll not argue that, but once again, that's where what you read and see online is going to make you not want to do it. People are going to call you names if you cut it apart and cook it as two pieces of meat. That's not how they do it on the competition circuit. They're not allowed to separate it on the competition circuit, but they can darn near separate it, because I've watched people like Harry Sue break them apart to where there's only one small strip of meat still holding the flat and the point together. You can almost completely separate it. So that gives you some advantage, but it's the first piece of brisket I ever cooked was a flat only. When I got my first Weber Smoky Mountain, I cooked a brisket flat for a Mother's Day lunch that we had here, and we had Tanya's parents over. And I got lucky; it came out pretty well. It was about a 7-pound flat, and I don't think I had any problems with it. I had read enough, and I used a wet rub on it that was Chris Lilly's. It was a Chris Lilly's recipe in his book called Bare Naked Brisket or something like that. So yeah, Scott's cooking his at 250 to 275. There's a lot of methods, and everybody's method's different. And when you start asking for help and start trying to figure out what the best method for cooking a brisket is, you're going to run into information overload. So
That's for sure.
Yeah. And what I guess maybe the best thing to do, instead of going online and asking the question in a forum where you're going to get 50 million different answers, half of which will be wrong answers, and the other half, which will be stuff that is just, somebody's secret recipe or secret technique. Everything you do is not necessarily a value-added process. Keep that in mind. Sometimes, somebody swears by this, somebody swears by that, but it's better to keep it simple in the beginning, because like any other piece of barbecue meat, lesson number one is learning when that thing's done. If you don't know when it's done and when it's ready to come off the smoker, nothing else matters.
Yep.
Because you're either going to end up with undercooked or overcooked brisket. and it won't matter
And both
what you've
suck.
done to it. Right? Yeah, it doesn't matter what you've done to it at that point, and there's really nothing you can do to help that process. And anybody that tells you that injecting the brisket or injecting it with tallow is going to make it more moist, it's not happening. It's you can't make a piece of meat more moist by injecting anything in it. It's going to squeeze it out. It may leave some flavor behind. That's the primary process of injecting something, is to add flavor. Any flavor that you've added to whatever you're injecting, some of that's going to stay behind, but the moisture part of it's not. It's coming back out. But
Well, I think the two secrets on cooking brisket, John. Number one secret is making sure it's probe tender. Number two secret is making sure you allow it to rest long enough, because a lot of people don't realize what the rest really does is it allows the meat to reabsorb those
right.
juices. And
Well,
if
I
you
think
don't
that
give it enough time to reabsorb it, then you're going to have a dry piece of meat.
I honestly think that that's a fallacy to some degree as well. It may be, but I don't
I don't think so.
I don't think once liquid has been squeezed out of meat, I don't think it's going to reabsorb it, or it doesn't appear to in the amount of foil and whatnot I've got in my pan. But what I do know is I would like for mine to be cooled down to below 165 before I cut it, because 165 is a critical point in protein in cooking proteins. I'm not going to get into the detail, the science of protein denaturing, but when that meat's coming up to temperature, when it hits 165, it goes through what I call an irreversible change in the texture of the meat. It changes state to where it can't go back, and it's I don't know, the moisture content part of it is something you can only tell that by doing uh, a side by side comparison. Do one way, one another, and see if you can tell the difference in the two. But
Yeah, but
I
even
like to
that's hit and
finish.
miss.
My favorite process with brisket is the same as I like to do with beef ribs. I like to smoke my brisket and then finish it in a pan with a little bit of liquid.
Mhm.
Not necessarily. It's more of a steam finish than a braise. I don't put as much liquid in the pan with a brisket as I would with beef ribs. But the other thing is don't. A lot of people tend to spend more time focusing on the bark than on the meat itself. Don't worry about your bark. Worry about the bark after you learn how to cook the brisket, because the bark's easy. But I've watched a lot of briskets get overcooked because people weren't happy with how their bark was set up, and they just keep on cooking it. But anyway, brisket. I don't want to dwell on briskets for the whole hour here, but briskets was something that came up. There was quite a few people that said, "I want to learn to cook a good brisket. I want to master the brisket." So maybe that's something we need to talk about, or maybe I can find somebody that uh, knows an awful lot about brisket to bring them on as a guest sometime and have it. Rubs and sauces were another thing that came up more than once. People want to learn to make their own rubs and sauces, and I'm 100% behind that. That's what I do, and I fully believe in it. I don't have anything against commercial rubs except for the price tag. They're very expensive, and I keep a few of them around here, but I use them as finishing. I use that as something I'm going to add to the meat after it's cooked. Like if I'm going to make a pulled pork sandwich, I may sprinkle a little bit of commercial rub on top of that pulled pork on the sandwich. But when I'm cooking that, I'm cooking it with my homemade rub that's primarily 5 ingredients. It's salt, pepper, garlic, onion, and paprika primarily. Uh, the all of the really nice ingredients that create intriguing flavors and intriguing aromas out of the bottle, those to me are all lost in the cook. They don't survive the cook. That, clove and cinnamon, for instance, there's not enough of it in there for for getting it to come through. The things, orange peel, orange zest is another one, or dried orange peel. Uh, those create a great aroma in the bottle, but they don't survive the cook. They're better as a finishing rub. It's kind of like when we talked about that high-end soy sauce that I recently bought. That's a finishing sauce. That's a dip. That's not something you cook with because it loses its greatness in the cook, if that makes sense. But rubs and sauces, I'll post. I'll make a post on Man Cave Meals this week, and I'll repost the new 3 rubs that I'm working with. I've got 3 new homemade rubs that I'm playing with. One of them's an all-purpose. One of them is a pork rub, and the other one's my beef rub. And they're all very basic. They're very easy to make, and you can make them for a fraction of the cost of any of the commercial stuff. And then you can tweak it to be what you want it to be. You can make it a lot more like commercial by adding other ingredients to it and tweaking the volumes and the ratios of those. Tar Heel says learning how to choose one is important. I've heard. Yeah, I guess he's talking about a rub. I missed the context on that. So I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have to come back to that. Some of my favorite commercial rubs are the Lane's barbecue. Lane's is the best, and it's also the most expensive. They're both of those things. I also really like a lot of the stuff from Meat Church and Killer Hogs, Malcolm Reed stuff. Malcolm Reed doesn't have a whole huge line of 50 different rubs. He's got the ones you need. He hasn't expanded his out into all these multiple different flavors that take 50 slots on a shelf somewhere. He's got his one called the barbecue rub. He's got his AP rub, and I think he's got 2 more now. He's got a hot version of his the barbecue rub. I think those were his 3 originals, and now he's got a steak seasoning now, and he's got one other one. I don't remember. I haven't tried the steak seasoning. I haven't tried the hot barbecue rub, and I haven't tried the steak or the whatever the new one is that he's got. But I've used his AP rub and his the barbecue rub a lot. And the great thing about those is I think you can pick those up at Walmart now. I think you'll find those they're on the shelf at my Walmart, so they're easy to come by. And that's one I highly recommend. There used to be Meat Church stuff. If you don't have a Walmart that's got them, Academy Sports is carrying a lot of those now, so they're easy to find there. But if you're going to use a commercial rub, find one you like and stick with it. I don't feel like I feel like I need a different rub on beef than on pork, but that's a lot of people don't. You can use whatever. So, he wants to know which one to use for a brisket. Well, for brisket, I like to not use sweet ingredients so much on a brisket, but I do like to have a little bit of sugar in that brisket rub because the sugar helps with the bark formation. So, yeah. So Brian says Malcolm's expanding his line. So. Yeah, but he makes great stuff. I'd love to meet Malcolm sometime, and I think the only way I'm going to get to meet him is if I go to Memphis in May because he's always there, and that might happen sometime. I may see if I can't make that happen this year somehow or another. I got to be careful with my time off this year because I just took a weekend off, and I'm taking another weekend off at the end of this month, and I don't want to eat up all my vacation time.
Let's see, I got to think here. How much vacation time do I have?
Yeah.
I'm running out, John.
Somebody, I had multiple things on my list about pizza, learning to make good pizza crust and breads and sourdough. And Jeff, I know you're working on sourdough. So sourdough
that's my New Year's resolution. I'm going to conquer it.
Sourdough is another labor of love, and it takes a it takes a good amount of time. I've been through the sourdough thing, and I enjoy it, but I've gotten to the point where I just don't do it as much because I'm pretty happy with the results I get on 48 and 72-hour cold ferments. But you'll be able to compare the two once you get your sourdough going. So
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I mean, because like during the pandemic, you and I baked just about
yeah,
everything imaginable but sourdough. Do I have a starter name yet? We haven't been very successful, Anthony. We're trying a new version
yeah.
tomorrow.
Jeff, I've got a video out there. I made a video on creating a starter. You might want to try my technique because it's worked for me every time I've used it.
Yeah.
I've never
We'll give
failed
that a
one.
go, and that's who I'm leaning towards right now.
Yeah,
If you Google best bakers in the world, depending on which list you come up with, you'll come up on just about every one of them. So
right.
we shall see.
But getting your sourdough starter going and keeping it going should not be a hassle. It should be quite easy to do. I don't know. Every now and then you run into issues. So
Yeah. I had 3
uh,
failures, so now we're going to go for a 4th.
yeah. Well, we'll get you going. We'll get your
Yeah.
starter going, and then once it's going, it's good to
Failure is
go.
part of learning. I look at it.
Yeah. Well, if you got any besides sourdough, Jeff, if you got anything you're planning to tackle and master in the coming year,
No, not really, John. I mean, you know, I've been doing barbecue since I was 18 years old, so that's 50 years that I've been doing
yep,
barbecue and smoking. So there's really not a whole bunch out there. I mean, you and I, a lot of people think that the barbecue grill is only good for their protein.
hmm
And you and I and Stephen Hickey, I mean, he's great with it. We bust that myth all to heck.
yep,
I use the barbecue for everything. I mean, whatever you can cook inside, I can cook on the barbecue. And I mean anything. I've done rice, I've done pasta, I've done sauces, anything,
yep,
soups. So there's really not a whole bunch left for me to try to go, oh yeah, I really want to do that. The thing that I really want to
right,
do is I want to do sourdough.
yep. Do you remember the thing that I promised that I wanted to do for the last 2 years that hasn't been done yet? Probably everybody's forgotten about it. I know I've brought it up for the last 2 years in a row, and I've
Yeah,
never
I'm
made it
thinking
happen.
about it because I remember it, but all right, throw it on me.
Debone a chicken.
Oh,
Yeah,
easy.
I've not mastered that technique yet, and that's one of the primary things I want to do. The other thing I want to do, I'm pretty confident with my Neapolitan pizza, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty happy with my technique on that. I think I want to work on New York style pizza this year with the Gosney oven out here. Work on getting a really good quality New York style pizza. So those are I'm
Are you
on.
going after a thin crust New York or?
Well, yeah, it'd be a typical thin crust
Yeah.
New York style pizza, but getting the flavor right and the texture right on that crust is the key because it's not cooked at 900 degrees like a
No.
Neapolitan. It's cooked at 550 to 600, and
Yeah, you try to cook that at 900 degrees, you're gonna have a burnt crust before your
yeah.
ingredients are melted.
But I'm gonna start working on that, and I want to work on the deboning the chicken because I want to learn how to do that, and I
Do you
want to
want to
get
make a
good at it.
curduncan?
No, I want to just make stuffed chicken. I think that's the right solution for a Thanksgiving meal. Even if you're just doing it with a turkey breast,
Mhm.
do a stuffed turkey breast. I'd rather do something like that at a Thanksgiving meal than cook the whole turkey. And there's
Well,
a
we
lot
only
of
cook the
things that,
breast for Thanksgiving. We don't cook the whole turkey.
yeah. So I haven't done squid.
Yeah, Andrew, I've done squid, I've done octopus, I've done
Octopus would be
rattlesnake,
fun to do.
I've done emu, I've done kangaroo, I've done camel, I've done, what else have I done? Elk, deer, lamb, yeah, everything.
Yeah, try a whole hog. I've never been in. I'm applauding you, Anthony. Go for it. It's real easy to build that cinder block pit. Just you're gonna have to. You got to just have a separate fire going somewhere where you can keep shoveling coals out of it into your pit, and that's an admirable task. Have you ever seen that thing called the La Caja China, Jeff?
Yes, that's what I was just getting ready to bring up. I would rather do it in that than in uh, a block. Those things just, and they're relatively cheap. Yep, that one right there. They're relatively cheap. They're about 350. Uh,
Well,
it's probably actually cheaper than the amount of cinder block, and then you know you need the expanded mesh, to put your pig on, and then another piece of mesh. Not
oh boy,
so much
these
mesh,
things have
but
gone up since the last time I looked at
oh
them.
yeah, used to be able to get them for like 199, but those
This
things
medium
turn
size
out
one now is 400. Yeah, it's
beautiful,
$400.
a beautifully moist
This is
pig.
this is different than the one I looked at. I think the one when I first saw this thing, you put your pig in there and you put a top on it, and then you put your charcoal on top.
Yep.
Is that not how this thing works anymore?
Well, yeah, that's how they
So
work.
I don't know.
Some of them
Okay.
you put some charcoal in it uh, and on top of it, so you're getting
Yeah.
the fire from both ways. But those
Well,
things they're fantastic cookers. They really are.
what made me think about that is there's an Asian market near me that has one of these that you can rent for $25 a day. So if you didn't want to buy one,
You
they
can go
they'll
try it
rent
out.
they'll rent you one. Yeah. So I remember seeing it out there the last time I stopped there to get some stuff, and I think the translation. What's weird about that? I think the literal translation of that's the pig box,
Yep.
but what's even funnier is it's a translation from Spanish and not from Chinese or Japanese. I could be wrong on that. So yeah, it is Anurag. It's an old style of cooking, but it works. I've seen lots of video content where people have done whole hogs on these things, and it's a
And if you
it's a it's a easier way maybe.
and if you want to go cheaper than that, just go buy yourself a bunch of banana leaves and dig yourself a pit.
Yeah.
Put a
Well,
fire
you can
down
buy
in there, and lay the banana leaves
you,
on top. Put your pig on. Lay more banana leaves on it, and cover it up in dirt. Come back 6 hours.
you could buy enough cinder blocks to make yourself a cinder block pit for probably 100 to $125, and then you're going to spend that much again to get a piece of
Your expanded
plywood to
mesh.
lay across the top of it and get some. You're going to have probably the expanded metal. You're going to have that number nine expanded metal. It's going to have to be heavy enough to hold whatever weight you want to put on it, unless you want to put a support under it. What you could do, you could get a couple of pieces of rebar to lay underneath it to keep it from sagging.
Well, you're better off getting some angle iron to weld to that expanded mesh.
Yeah,
That keeps it from bowing, because if you don't, that expanded mesh is gonna bow unless, like you say, you come in and throw some rebar in between your blocks, to hold it
right.
up there. But like I say, by the time you do all that, you got that box that you could have already bought, or like I say, just dig a pit and bury it.
Yep. So that's just food for thought. I thought that would be something worth looking at. Let me bring Tanya back.
The other thing a
What
lot of
am,
people don't realize is they got to thaw that pig, and that
right?
in and of itself is an adventure. You better have a bathtub handy.
Are they frozen when you get them?
Usually they are. Yep.
Huh, I did not know that.
Unless you can go to like out to the farm and get one butchered right there, but otherwise you're like if you go
Right?
down to Publix and order one, that thing's coming in a box frozen.
Yeah. I didn't know you could buy whole hogs at Publix. Are they?
Oh yeah,
Are
you
they?
just go in there, tell them what size you want, how many pounds you want. Give them 2-3 days, they'll have it in.
Nice. I've got no interest in that. That's outside of my scope of interest. It's something I
You
would
got to
love to be
do
a
it
part
once.
of. Well, I would love to be a part of a whole hog cook, but I'd rather be a part of somebody else's cook than my own. I'd rather go help somebody else do one than do one myself.
I'll tell you what, being having gone to the mixing school, that
Yeah,
whole hog that he does, oh my God, that's what you eat for breakfast on
right.
Sunday morning. Is that whole hog?
Hmm.
Oh my God, John, that thing, it is
I bet it's good.
a
I got a couple
thing of
more
beauty.
pictures. I did a bunch of cooking. Was it Tanya? Was it Christmas Eve, or is it what day
Yeah,
did I do?
it was
It was two.
Christmas
It
Eve.
was.
It was the crazy cooking day.
I spent all day cooking Christmas Eve. Tanya and I did some cooking for our parents for meal prep stuff for Christmas, and we gave them all of them got some food. I bought two of these packs of huge boneless, skinless chicken breast, and there's like six of these things in the package, and each one of those things weighs close to a pound. They're really big chicken breasts. So I made some of my I don't know where that came from. Oh, I'm going the wrong way here. I
Boom.
made some of my I made some of my marinade, and this marinade that I make is a mixture of Dale's seasoning, the low sodium version, uh, bourbon, and molasses. It's very simple. And sometimes I might add something extra to it, like I might add some granulated garlic, or I might add some cayenne pepper, or I might add, if I'm doing pork, I might add some cinnamon to it, just based on whatever I'm cooking. But I let these things marinate overnight in that. And we also did pork loin, which is what you're looking at here. Uh, this is the lower end of the pork loin where you've got multiple muscles there. But I sliced up a whole pork loin and marinated it overnight as well, and had a glass of bourbon after I got all that done. So, uh, I bought a prime rib or a ribeye roast or a rib roast or whatever you want to call it. It came from Publix and it's not prime grade. So for those of you that are uh, concerned with the words, it's not
Standing
really.
rib roast.
It's a standing rib roast, yeah, maybe, but that looked pretty good. That thing's got some nice marbling in it. It was a 6 pounder. It wasn't very large. So Tanya's parents won't eat prime rib, but my mom will. So my mom ended up getting all this one. So I cooked that. I used some of my homemade AP rub. This is a new experimental one that I made, and I got good feedback. I didn't tell mom I had changed anything in it, but this I made this with an ingredient that I've never used before that we'll talk about later. I got to get this recipe just right before we talk about it. But I seasoned it up, and I used the RFX again, and I put this guy in the Lone Star and let it cook for about 4 hours. The chicken breasts, I pounded those chicken breasts a little flatter, and I tossed them all on the griddle and cooked them until they were just perfect. I've got too much here. I like to get a nice char, and this marinade that I make, you got to pay attention to it because it's got molasses in it, and you don't want to overchar anything because it will with that sugar in it. But these are perfect. This is the kind of char I like to put on a chicken breast. And that's right there, right before they were getting ready to come off. When I cook these guys on my Traeger griddle, I pull them off the griddle when the internal temperature hits about 148 to 150. I don't let them go any further than that. And that's a little bit closer look at what one of them looks like finished up. But that's not what I'd call the presentation side. That's the back side. That's not the side you'd put face up on a plate if you were serving that. So, I've got a video clip. Play, maybe not. We'll skip over that. And then I just made a little note of how easy it is to clean that griddle up. That griddle, after I cooked all that chicken, I used this metal scraper, and that's all that's been done to it there. Every bit of that stuff scrapes right off and goes down the trash chute here in the front. And this is what those breasts look like. I let them cool, and for my mom, I cut each one. I took 6 of those breasts and cut them in half and individually packaged them in vacuum seal bags for my mom. And the ones that we gave to Tanya's parents, I put a whole one in the bag for them because there's 2 of them. They'll be eating. I don't know if they'd eat a whole one. They may split one, but I'll let them split it. And then after we got the chicken done, I got my pork loin that I had cut up. I bought a whole pork loin, and it was nearly 11 pounds. And after I cut the very ends off of the pork loin, I still got 20 slices that are this thick, and it's a little over an inch. I didn't actually measure it. I just kind of eyeballed it to slice those up. And right here I've got 20 pork loin slices on the griddle at once, and they cook fairly quickly. They look really good. There's a little bit closer picture of what we have. These I did on the pork. I did add a little bit of cinnamon to that marinade, and my mom and Tanya's parents both love the way this pork comes out.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Yeah. What internal temperature did you cook those to, John?
I pull those off at about 135, and the reason I don't care if these finish shy of being white all the way through, because I know they're going to be reheated, and if there's any pink left in those, it will go away during the reheat. But if I was cooking this for me, I'd definitely pull it at 135, and that way it won't coast up above 145 usually. But if I'm being real particular about pork for me, it's not going to finish over 140. I would pull mine off at 132 probably off of that griddle. So, and once again, that Traeger griddle cleans up really easily. This is not just after scraping it off. I've scraped it off. I've used a wet rag on it, and I've put down a very thin sheen of oil back on top of it before I closed it up and put it away. But this cooking surface is amazing, guys. I don't know how to. One of the answers on my question when I asked people what they wanted to do in the new year, somebody put on there they wanted to learn griddle cooking. I don't remember who it was, but man, this thing is a blast to cook on. I really love cooking on this one. And I have the Traeger Flat Rock, and I've had it for a little over a year now. I think I bought it in November a year ago, and I've done a lot of cooking on it. And Tanya likes all the stuff I've prepared for the 2 of us on it. I don't think she likes the fried rice and stuff I've done with it. But,
and don't forget, I love the squash burgers.
The squash burgers.
The squash burgers.
Yeah. Her dad was telling us about a hamburger he had that he really liked, and he was calling it a squash burger, and I could not figure out what he was talking about. I was thinking in my mind, is somebody made a burger with a slice of butternut squash or something? And that took me a while to realize that he was talking about a smash burger, but he was calling it a squash burger.
Oh, you
But
squash it, John.
this is the prime rib, or this is the standing rib roast right before it's ready to come off. I cooked this guy at 250. There's no searing done or anything. And when you look at this guy, I don't know, maybe I don't look at it the same way. I don't see a need for a sear on this. I've got enough browning and caramelization on the outside of that meat that I don't see any reason to follow that with a sear. And I did not do this one the way I've done it in the past. I didn't start it out in a 500-degree oven to brown the outside of the meat. I just went straight into the Lone Star grill at 250 with it. And this one I did do one thing differently that I don't normally do. I chilled this one. I let this one cool, and then I put it in the refrigerator and let it chill before I sliced it. That way I could slice it, put it in vacuum seal bags, and hand it off to my mom, because my mom, actually, each one of these slices got cut in half again, and I vacuum sealed those individually. And my mom has a sous vide circulator, and she knows how to reheat these things. And she'll reheat them at 135 for about an hour, and that's part of what went in my mom's Christmas gift. I think
I
that's
like
all.
that knife, John.
Yeah, the knife is
Yeah.
that's the carbon Kramer. Yep. So there is that, but that's the cooking I did. I did that cooking on Christmas Eve. I got a little behind on that. I wanted to get that done before I got back and went back to work over the weekend, and then it was a rush because we had to be at her parents' house at 4 or so on Christmas Eve. So I was up against a clock to get all that done and dealt with before we had to leave. But it was fun. I just waited a little late to get started. I should have started an hour earlier than I did, and I didn't. But most of this cooking goes pretty fast. The prime rib took longer than I expected. That was what hung me up. Jeff, that roast took me 4 hours for some reason or another, and I normally would have that
That's
off in
unusual.
2.5 to 3 at the outside edge.
Really?
That one took longer to cook.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I've never had one of these go 4 hours before, so I don't have an answer to that. I don't know why, but it's perfectly cooked. It's right where I needed it to be. I pulled it off at 125, and it coasted up to 136 before it started falling again. So it's perfect on where I wanted it to be. It landed exactly where it was supposed to, but it took me an hour longer than I expected to get that off of there. And I thought I was going to have to send Tanya on without me until I got that thing dealt with, but we made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Gotta be
Subaru cook went well.
Yeah.
Yep,
You
I
cooked
wanted
for the
everything.
dealership. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted everything to be at the dealer by 11 a.m. and managed to make my target.
Right.
And while John was
So,
scrambling around and doing all that, I put a lasagna together.
yeah,
That's what we had for Christmas dinner was lasagna.
Yeah, we had lasagna at Mom's on Christmas Day, and Tanya put it all together. We used Tanya's recipe because Tanya likes her recipe better than mine, so that's what we did.
And it
We,
was
we
delicious,
went
wasn't it?
we went to
It
Buca di
was.
Beppo, and I had lasagna.
I actually had some of the leftover lasagna for dinner tonight.
I think
So,
lasagna
yeah.
is one of those things that it's better the second day.
Well, I have to agree with that to some extent because any tomato sauce is always better the next day. But
Yep.
lasagna, I may play with lasagna some more. I'm going to make I like making lasagna, and I want to use this pan that I've got. I'll have to show you guys this pan because I think I bought this pan 7 or 8 years ago and I've not used it yet. I'll have to show it to you. It's a lasagna pan that's a maze where every piece is an edge piece. Every piece, every piece in the pan's an edge piece. So
Cool.
I I don't remember where I bought it. I just remember that I bought it and I've never cooked in it, and I know exactly where it is. And it comes with a spatula that's the right width to lift pieces out of this pan. And we need to do that, but we'll see what happens. Tanya won't like it because it'd be my recipe instead of hers, but we'll figure something out. I don't know.
Wait,
I need to do some.
I got a nice compromise, John. Tanya's recipe, your pan.
Yeah. Well, we could do that. Tanya's recipe's good. I have to admit that. There's nothing wrong with Tanya's recipe. The only thing I make, the biggest difference between my recipe and Tanya's recipes, I make the tomato sauce that goes in mine. I make it from scratch. Yeah. So.
But you use don't you make your bechamel? I don't do a bechamel. I use ricotta. I could do a bechamel, and I've done that before, but that's one way. You can do both, you know, the bechamel layer. The bechamel layer works if you need a presentation where the cross section of it's going to need to look nice. You need to do the bechamel. It gives you a better separation, but it's more aesthetic than flavor.
So, John, going back to those Masterbuilt electric smokers,
mm-hmm.
The widest one is 20 inches wide. So
let's see here.
If you go to the propane, you can go up to 24 inches wide.
What I was looking at was something like this guy right here. This
Yep, that one's 20 inches wide.
20 inches left to right.
Yep.
How deep is it?
I think it said 19 if I remember correctly, John.
Don't
quote me on that.
20 inches will hold a typical brisket, and if it won't, you would do the same thing you would do as if it was going to. Or this one also, Jeff, you have to keep in mind that your brisket's going to be cooked before it goes in there, so it's going to have shrunk. So about any brisket you'd want to put in there would be good.
Yeah, but how long is a hotel pan?
Well, a hotel pan's not going to fit if it's 20. I don't know. 20 inch. I don't know if a hotel pan's 20 or not. I'd have to measure it.
I'll tell you in a second.
But you don't have to worry about that guy holding a full brisket that's uncooked. But I don't know if a hotel pan may be 20 inches. Tanya, do you know how long that is?
I don't off the top of my head.
Yep.
Hotel pan's 21 inches, John.
Yeah, it's not going to fit, but.
Yep. I mean, you could probably squeeze it up and make it fit.
I'm pretty confident that this thing will run at 150, though.
Yeah, the electric one, sure. Well, see, the Masterbuilt, the Gravity Series, you can drop that thing down to 150.
Well, the detail on this one actually says you can go from 100 to 275, so you could run this one anywhere in there. 275 is the max temp on that one.
Yep.
So at 100, you should be able to run it at 150 without any trouble.
I say you just have to bend the sides of the pan up, but yeah, that would work.
I wouldn't even do it. I would just wrap mine in foil or get a regular foil pan because I'm not going to put anything in there that's anywhere near that wide. Even if I had a 20-pound brisket, by the time it's cooked, it's going to be less than 18 inches left to right.
Mm-hmm. I say it's the foil pan is what the issue is. But like I say, you could bend the ends in on that.
Right. But that's that's at 329. But I really think
they got a 199 one. It's not Wi-Fi or anything. Yeah, there's a 199 model.
That's the analog. That's the analog one.
Right.
So that one doesn't have digital temperature control. You may be able to.
With it being electric, as long as I can set it to 150, who cares?
Well, there's
whether it's a
another one.
digital readout or
Oh, Jeff, have a look at this one. This let me see if I can get that one to come up in the Academy website. This one's $199, and it's digital, and it's got it's bigger. It's
that would work.
25 inches wide. So yeah, that would be a really good one right there.
Yep.
That one will hold your hotel pan. They've even got a rack of ribs full length in there. I don't know what the temperature range on that one is. See if it lists it here. I don't know what that 40-inch representation means. It's probably the height. But I don't see the temperature range listed on here, but I feel fairly confident it'll do 150. I'll have to look into that one because that smoker right there, or one similar to it, when I was first looking at getting a smoker, I had almost convinced myself to buy one of those until the good people on another forum talked me into buying charcoal instead, which I'm glad they did because I ultimately would not have been happy with that.
No.
But the price was right. That one's on sale, actually. That one's normally $300. So,
Yep, it's out of stock too.
yeah, it says that it's in stock online. That would be a good one. But anyway, Tanya, have I missed anything we need to address? Have we got anything I need to look at? Jeff?
No, I think that's about it. There's been a lot of talk about a V4 warming oven and how it'll fit a hotel plan.
Honorog, have a good evening. Let me look at that.
Briskets. Holds. Let me see if I can. There we go. I've got the comment. One of the comments up. There have been several.
This is one of the ones from Vivor at $349. It's 19 by 19, so it's slightly bigger.
Yep, that won't take a full hotel pan. They got half pans in there.
Yeah, but there's what else have they got? I don't know. There's a lot of solutions to keeping stuff warm, but I'm not as big a fan of that concept as I am some of the others. But I know where it came from. It's another one of these situations where the backyard guy is adopting what they do in a restaurant.
Yep.
Because the restaurant's they do that out of necessity rather than doing it out of making the best possible result sometime, because they've got to be able to cook that stuff and they've got to be able to store it. And once you put that thing in that 150-degree oven, it's got to stay in there for a certain amount of time for it to finish tenderizing. But then once it's to that point, you can probably hold it there for 12 hours before serving it. You've always got good brisket to serve, and I'm sure that's one of these things.
Yep. Well, I say that new method that I'm using, it has been very consistent.
Yeah.
Doing it that way, so it's my go-to way from now on.
Right. So yeah, that gets you back into the keeping it in the smoke longer. That's the only thing I don't like about the hot and fast method. No matter what people say, I can tell the difference in the amount of smoke flavor that's there, smoke flavor and aroma that's there on one that's only been in the smoker for 4 or 5 hours.
Yes and no. I think if you're using an offset and you're doing that, I don't think you're going to notice that much difference.
Yeah, it's possible, but
That's
I mean,
why I've
let's
gone
face
back.
it, you get a better smoke profile with an offset. That's one of the things that I like about that Masterbuilt layering lump, post oak,
Yeah,
lump, post oak. Man, you
right.
get a beautiful smoke profile in it. You wouldn't want to do that for chicken. It would
No,
overpower your chicken, any poultry. But the something that's going to take a long time, like a brisket or pork butts, it's great.
right. So I guess we need to probably start wrapping things up here. I don't. Has
Yep.
anybody got any questions? Tell me what some of your resolutions are. What is it you're going to do in the new year? What one thing are you going to master this year that you haven't mastered in the past? What's that one thing going to be? If you don't know what it is right now, think about it and bring it back. We can talk about these things again, or leave a comment in the video, and I can come back and go through those. And another thing, when I tell y'all to do that, there's a problem with that. The comments that are left by people who are watching through YouTube, I can see them during the live stream, but after the fact, I can't see those comments. The comments that are happening live from YouTube don't get saved. The only YouTube comments I get are comments where people have gone back and watched after the fact. So that's a problem with StreamYard. Apparently, I don't know. This system won't. The only comments that get saved are the YouTube or the Facebook comments here for whatever the reason. It's platform differences. But this platform does give me the ability to stream to multiple platforms at once. So that's a good thing. Because I know there's people that watch here on YouTube who don't do Facebook. So, all right, Jeff, you got anything else? What do you want to?
Nope.
What do you want to? Do you have any idea what we might want to do next week?
It's too early to do a beef brisket. I just did a brisket
Yeah,
not not too long ago.
sometime January or February we'll do a brisket
Yeah,
session.
towards the end of January, February. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going
So,
to continue working on improving my knife skills.
yep.
I took a cooking course over the summer, and one of the units was knife skills. And I've definitely gotten better with it, and I've gotten faster with it. I'm still nowhere near as fast as John. So when I need something done quickly, John becomes my sous chef. And so I want to continue working on that.
Cool.
I'm not fast by any sense of the word when it comes to knife skills, but I can chop an onion in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
good
am
at
slow.
that.
That's the whole thing. That's one of the reasons. Okay, so reasons I don't particularly like to cook. It's not that I don't like the cooking process itself. It's just really, truly like I am so slow in the kitchen. Like if the recipe says that it could be on the table in like 30 minutes and there's any chopping of vegetables or measuring out of spices or anything like that, you can just about double that for me because, it just takes me that long.
All right. So some of these YouTube guys have got the answer. Some of these comments are there. I just didn't know how to go look for them. And Anthony, I think that's a great option. I think, Jeff, we need to start talking about game day stuff again sometime soon. And we need to get outside the box and find something. Maybe we should try to come up with something new. I think everything under the sun's been done for game day, but maybe we can come up with something new. Be thinking about that.
Yeah, we'll have to think because like I say it's you know you got your pig snots, your shooters,
Yeah.
your weenies.
All of those things, I like to call them novelty cooks, and they've all been done to death. So we need to come up with something fresh, something new, something out of the ordinary. We'll think of something. One of the things that I think's not done enough is dips. Chip dips and pretzel dips and stuff that you can put on the smoker, like queso and
Yeah.
various things. Smoked queso's been overdone a lot lately, but it's and smoked cream cheese. Those things are very good and they're very easy to do. But we need to come up with something new.
I'll put my thinking cap on and see if I can come up with something interesting and unique that's not as common. I really have to think that out. I got an idea of something I did a long time ago, but maybe I could revive it. Do you remember when I did the rib sandwich thing, Jeff, where I cooked baby back ribs, pulled the bones out, put it on a piece of French bread, and made bacon
Yep.
jam, and made a sandwich. You know that slices up into a whole bunch of rib sandwiches that are really good. That's kind of a interesting game day item. But another thing I like doing is pretzels. I've done pretzels before, but and once again, I fear doing pretzels to this audience because this audience still doesn't like making bread and bread dough.
You know
So
that's what we got. That's what we got to make for a New Year's resolution for our group here. Is every one of them has to do at least one bread.
man, my worst performing videos are anything that involves flour. If it's got flour in it, nobody's interested.
I got, like I said, when going back to the pandemic, I mean that was so relaxing and
Yeah,
calming, and
you
I just don't
can't
get it.
convince somebody of that until they do it for themselves, though.
I mean, and
Yeah,
some of the best
turducken's
things we
not
made. I
happening
mean,
at my house.
the ciabatta was fantastic. The focaccia was out of this world. We
Russ
tweaked
has got
the
something
cinnamon
there.
rolls.
Russ is
Bang
talking
bang
about
salmon bites.
Chud's deviled eggs. Uh, I think I could probably come up with some uh, extra deviled egg because I love deviled eggs, and that's a canvas that you can really turn into whatever you want it to be when you make that filling and the toppings that go on it.
Michael said he
So
was game for bread. So there's one
yeah,
person.
Tell you, it's calming. It's a zen.
yeah, it's it's an experience, and what's really good, it really gets good when you get good at it. When your results come, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be preaching about bread because I think brisket's easier than bread. So, I think all barbecue's easier than bread. I don't know. Some breads are easy. Some of your enriched breads where you're not dealing as much with the proofing times. It can
Holy
be,
crap, Tar Heel.
yeah.
Well, I was looking at Michael's comment here. Deviled quail eggs? Seriously? You deviled quail eggs? Those things are like this big.
That's what we call
Holy
bite
cow.
size.
Yeah.
That's called I
I,
actually inhaled and one sucked in my mouth.
we do man cave. We'll do man cave style deviled eggs, and we'll make them with goose eggs. We'll make man cave size deviled eggs. Uh,
Get
I
a
wonder if
couple
you
of
can make a
ostrich
deviled
eggs.
egg with ostrich. That's what I was just getting ready to
oysters.
say.
Oysters would be good.
Ah,
I could do oysters. I've still got this set of ceramic oyster shells that are reusable. I've not
put them
done
on the
anything with
smoker.
them either. It's another one of these things I've bought that I've never used.
Well, I'm
So
telling you, Michael says do duck eggs. What's funny about all of that is over the break, one of my very good friends, I met with them and we went to a Chinese buffet, and her daughters were cracking me up because they're very adventuresome eaters. So they bet them $1 that they wouldn't eat like octopus. Well, they went and got them some octopus, brought it back, and ate them, and they were like getting their dollars, going woohoo! Put it in my wallet. Then they decided to get really bold, and they tried crawdads, and then they tried oysters.
mhm.
Oysters
Octopus
on
is
the half
something I've
shell.
threatened to do. I've threatened to do octopus before. The thing I've got to figure out, Jeff, is when I go online and search for octopus recipes, it all boils down to something that somebody's making to put on a damn salad. I've got to figure out something. I don't
A
have anything
salad or a
against the
sauce.
idea. I don't have anything against the idea of the octopus salad, but since that's what everybody does with octopus, if I can't come up with a better something to do with octopus, I don't want to do it. I mean, I understand the cooking process. I've read about it enough. You know, you boil this thing to soften it up, and then you char it on the grill. You get the what's that little bone thing you have to press out of it called?
I forget.
I can't remember, but I don't think the cooking process is the problem. It's what I'm going to do with it when I'm done with it is the reason I haven't done one before. Tanya, that fresh market up in Asheville had octopus the last couple times I've been in there. So
yeah, the keel bone.
Keel bone. Okay. Yeah, that needs to be popped out. But once you get that out, you either steam or boil that thing to soften it up because they're really tough. You've got to soften them up, and then once you have them softened up, you can cut them into whatever pieces you want, and season them however you might like, and then you grill them to put a little char on it. But then everybody takes that thing and puts it on a salad, and that's just not what I would want to do with it, unless I can come up with something better to do with it than put it on a salad. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the salad's a bad idea. I'm just saying it's like overdone, and I don't want to be the next guy to make an octopus salad.
Yep.
I want to find a better use for it or something else to do with it. It very well, I think maybe, I don't see why you couldn't cook that octopus and char it up and then dice it and make a taco of some sort with it, or a po' boy or whatever, because the consistency of that's going to be a lot like shrimp. It's going to be a little softer than shrimp, probably. It should be a good bit softer than shrimp.
The one thing I think I want to try is some smoked scallops. I've never done smoked scallops.
I haven't either. I seared a ton of them though, and
Yep.
the scallops are getting unaffordable for me. They're $30 a pound everywhere I see them anymore.
I haven't even looked at the price of them.
Yeah,
It's not one of those things I buy. I mean, let's be realistic. The food bill is ridiculous.
Anya and I saw some nice looking scallops at Costco last week, but they were just expensive.
Yeah, Costco gets some nice looking seafood in.
I did buy another rack of pork when we were down there, because if I ever get that rotisserie for the Huntsman, I might just do a video cook and do a rack of pork on the Huntsman rotisserie when it.
I love those rack of porks. They are so moist and tender.
Yeah.
All right, John. It's getting about that time, buddy.
That's $3 a pound well spent.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys. I appreciate you coming with us. I'll figure out what we're going to do next week, and we'll post. So everybody have a happy new year.